And now, the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Staton and Tyler Hansbrough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. This is Sleep Dog with the Big Hawk.
What's up, everybody? It's the Big Hawk. Excited to do an episode with my guy, Sleep Dog. I've got a great pod, a lot to cover, and I'm excited.
Always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Kind of a tough week, though. Heels Law go to Maui. We talked about that last episode. We're going to dive into a quick recap to kick things off here in just a second. Beat Dayton in a close one. Big Hawk called it. Dayton, not a team to overlook. Auburn lost kind of bad. Michigan State lost in overtime. All these games were on at 15 o'clock a.m. So they were tough for Sleep Dog to tune in for, but I have done my due diligence and, trying to unpack what went down. Got Alabama coming up next on Wednesday. We'll jump into that. We'll talk about also Georgia Tech on Saturday. Both those are home games at 7:15 and 2 p.m. respectively. But yeah, and then before we get out of here, we're not going to lead with it, but if you're hiding under a rock, don't know that Mack Brown has been fired. We'll chat a little bit about that and flag planting and a couple other things Carolina related. But first things first, let's jump into Maui Invitational recap. Big Hawk. Heels go 2-2 in Hawaii. First game was not part of the Maui Invitational against Hawaii. So, we talked last week about, hey, there's a huge slate. I mean, look at what happened to UConn, right? If you're a Carolina fan, best advice I can give you, look what happened to UConn, okay? But Heels come out of there, probably would have rather lost one game instead of two. But, beat a good Dayton team. I think, had some matchup problems against a great Auburn team. And then, Michigan State's going to be close no matter what they are in the rankings. So I don't know. What do you take out of it? What do you make out of it? And, where do you think the Heels go from here?
It's Sleep. I've said this before the season. I just think that from the get, we're going to be a much better team here in a few weeks versus when we started. We talked about this team. There's a lot of guys getting, more minutes than they've ever gotten. There's a lot of unproven guys. We have a couple of very talented freshmen that are still developing and actually playing extremely well when they do get in. So we knew it wouldn't be a smooth start, but, so do not hit the panic button just yet. There's some positives to take away, and there's some negatives that we got to fix. But the first thing, listen, the Hawaii game, we've talked about it. We've got to be good at what we do when we win. We're much more talented. We outmatch them physically and athletically, and we did that. And I thought that was a good game for Hubert to schedule, just to get guys to Hawaii early, get acclimated to the time zone, the travel, everything, and you get right into it. So that was a good win. And then we start the Maui Invitational. The first thing I will say is if you really like the Maui tournament, you better enjoy it while it lasts. In the new era of college basketball, when everything's for a profit, teams aren't going to go out to Hawaii. They can make more money if they have home games. So enjoy this tournament. The future of the Maui Invitational, it's a little bit up in the air. There's a lot of people who are a little bit optimistic, but I have my questions. I've always enjoyed the tournament as well. I think it's a great kickoff to college basketball season as well. But, let's talk about Sleep. And I'm going to lump all the Maui games into one segment. So I'm going to, Dayton, Auburn, and Michigan State. The one, kind of thing that I'm seeing reoccur from game to game is we've got to get to better starts. We can't get down 20 or 30 points and just dig ourselves out of a hole the whole game. It's exhausting, and you can't do that and expect to win against good teams. We've got to get off to better starts. We got down big against Dayton. I thought we were just going to get the doors blown off of us, and then we come back and win. And the one positive I will say about us getting down big in a lot of these games, you saw it at Kansas, Dayton, Michigan State, all these games, is we are still fighting. We have not given in one time. These guys have battled back. They've given themselves a chance to win about every game that they've got down big. So that's a positive. If we can just figure out this start and get off to a better, start of the game, I think we're going to really put ourselves in a better position to win some of these big-time games. Now, we got to get some wins, and we need some big-time wins. So we got one coming up that's going to be super important. But the other thing I will say is we've got to bring it defensively. We've all got to be connected. I still think this team plays its best basketball when they're really getting after it defensively. They're pressuring the other team. They're forcing turnovers, and I think that's going to be a huge factor for this team. Initially, before the season, I thought the biggest area of concern or the main focus had to be our pace of play, but it's not. I think defense, we have to bring it defensively. Every single night we have to set a tone because this team plays better when they come out and they pressure the ball, they force teams into turnovers, and we're actually rebounding as a unit because we lack that size, even though rebounding was a big concern for us preseason. We've done better than a lot of people have thought, and we're rebounding as a unit a little bit. And I know Janiah Broom for Auburn kind of had his way with us, but he's done that against every team that he's faced. Auburn, to me right now, they've arguably played the best schedule, the toughest schedule. They have the best wins, and they are the best team in the country. So that loss isn't as bad as what it seems. Now, the Michigan State loss, Michigan State's still, struggling a little bit. And the one head scratcher about this sleep is Michigan State is not a good shooting team. They're just a grind. You know what they are. They're going to beat you up on the boards, grind you down, play smart, Tom Izzo basketball. And I just felt like, this was our opportunity to get a big win, but kind of dug ourselves, a little hole, and they made plays in overtime and won the ball game when we didn't. And that's what it came down to. But my main takeaways are we've got to get off to better starts. We've got to bring it defensively. And I'm not sure what we're going to do to fix the starts. I could see us tweaking a little bit with the starting lineup because you just can't come out every game and get behind or put yourself in such a big hole and expect to, for us to fight back and, every single game. I mean, it's just going to get exhausting and it's really going to wear on you throughout the season. So we've got to figure that out, whether that's, adjust the starting lineup, maybe move Drake. I think, positive from the Maui's, Drake played unbelievable. I still think these freshmen in Jackson and Drake Powell, they're playing unbelievable, and they keep getting better and better. And Drake's showing us a lot. He can do a little bit of everything. He has athleticism. He has a little bit of size. He just needs that experience. And I think he's going to end up being a much bigger piece of this team than I actually originally thought. And I think we'll see that here in a few weeks, as he continues to develop and play well. And the other positive is Seth Trimble. He continues to bring it offensively. He's been consistent. He's turned himself into a two-way player. He can bring it defensively. He's one of the best defenders in the country. And offensively, he is a threat now. He's playing with confidence, and I take that away. And my last point, I'll touch on RJ. Listen, RJ's going to figure it out. He's going to find his rhythm. It's not like he's been playing bad, but this RJ Davis. He has an absolute torch, and listen, he will turn it on, and it's not going to be long before it's that RJ that's lighting it up from outside anywhere. And I expect that to come around soon. So that is my takeaway from Maui. I'm not hitting the panic button. I still think this team is trending in the right direction, and they've battled. Their team chemistry and their body language with each other is still very good, and this team is very close. They're playing hard. Just got to figure a few things out, and I think we'll be that tough team that everyone thought we would be.
Yeah. So you mentioned the the slow starts, and that's the one thing. I mean, I guess in Dayton, was it 21-point lead at one point in time? It was at least 19. Heels are down 18, I think, in the first half at halftime. Down triple digits at some point or another in all three of those games in the first half. So, how does it? I guess my question for you is, how does it happen, or like, why does that happen? You're prepping for this. Are you just cold? Is it just a byproduct of being in a different place and kind of out of rhythm? Because even though you're 7:30 tip there, it's 1:00 in the morning, and I mean, I get that you showed up a few days early, but there's still a little bit of a lag that's got to be there. And this isn't the NBA. You're not doing West Coast road trips and stuff like that. Is that to blame, or is it something more strategic? I don't know.
Sleep, it could have something to do with lineups or guys just kind of, still figuring it out. But you know what? There's no excuse. You've got to figure that out. And I'm not sure if it's, on the guys as far as, doing something different in warmups, whether they're preparing or they're going harder. You need to have a good sweat. You cannot start the game expecting to, warm up or, get game ready. You better be game ready when that ball tips. And the competition that we've, started the season with, we have arguably one of the toughest schedules in college basketball. And I love the fact that we scheduled the way we did. We're not ducking anybody. And you got to give Hubert credit for that. You have to reward teams that play tough schedules as well. You've got to get off to a better start. I don't have that answer, whether it's changing the starting lineup, holding guys accountable, or simply as, we're going to change our pregame prep. We're going to start playing one-on-one. We're going to play a little bit of basketball before the game. We're going to get after it. That way, whenever the ball goes up, we're ready to go. And I think they need to look at that. But you cannot start the games like we've been starting and expect us to win these.
So that's it brings up an interesting question from someone like me that hasn't been through it, right? Like, so what goes into the pregame? Is that a player decision? Is that a program decision? Is that the strength coach decision? Like, I mean, how does the pregame work, and when does it start? And maybe walk us through that.
Yeah, so it's different for each player. A guy like myself who was at Carolina starter, was going to play heavy minutes. I would always kind of dial back my pregame, warm up or routine right before the game. I always showed up to the arena, especially when we're playing at the Smith Center, in the morning, and I got a ton of shots up, kind of dialed in my shot, my post moves, a ton of free throws, and I like to shoot a lot of threes. Oddly enough, in my my pre-morning game routine, but that's what I did. But right before the game, Sleep, my partner before the game was Mike Copeland, and we used to go. We had a post-up routine. I would hit, right hooks, right, left, and I would have like a go-to move I was trying to dial in right before the game. And usually that was a pound right hook, catch right hook, duck in right hook. If anybody remembers, I love my right-hand hook. And so then I always had my counter move, my go-to move, my right-hand hook. Whenever the defense took that away, I went right to my turnaround jump shot over my left shoulder. And I dialed that in, and then I would go and shoot a lot of free throws. But some guys, they like to come out and they like to get a little one-on-one action, just because I wasn't a one-on-one guy, one-on-one pregame guy, just because, the game was so physical, and, I was a kind of a bully post player that kind of wore me down. But a lot of guards, or post players will like to get a little bit of one-on-one action before the game. It kind of gives them a little feel. That way they can finish through contact or shoot over a contested hand, and just stuff like that. It varies from player to player, but obviously something's got to change for these guys.
And so let's say obviously you had your go-to moves, your go-to counter move, but how much did like pregame prep play into that? So let's say you've got, a sophisticated, opponent like Duke, right? And that they know that what your move is and what your counter move is. Like, I mean, how do you adjust based on, maybe an understanding? I mean, because in like baseball, right, you can kind of like, throw different pitches. I guess in basketball, but like football, you can run different plays. But I guess when it comes to an individual player, there are strengths and weaknesses, and you can expect good teams to force you to your weaknesses and away from your strengths. So does that change anything about the pregame warm up, or do you is that very routine based?
No, it didn't change a thing for me. I always felt like you get me that ball in that left or right block, I'm going to figure out how to get to my go-to, and I can figure out how to score. A lot of times, it might not have been a right-hand hook, but it was very similar going through contact. The shot might have been a little bit different, but I was trying to hone it in. And, sometimes, I'm such a superstitious guy. When I played at UNC, there was a checklist of things I'm going through in warm-ups. Mm-hmm. Like I've got to make a certain amount of free throws. I've got to make, a certain amount of post moves, touch on my free throw line jump shot, maybe top of the key three. Just make sure all those are dialed before the game. That was huge for me. And I never wore a warm up shirt. I always wore my jersey because I like that game feel. Or I wanted to simulate or mimic the game setting as much as possible. But if I'm playing a big game, it's like Duke and I got a little extra energy, I'll stay out there kind of honing in my right-hand hook. And it's kind of an odd, way to describe it, but I wanted to stay until it felt just right. Like I'm talking about, like I'm getting my right-hand hook and it's just going through, not touching the rim, just nothing but net. And I like to get that feeling right before the game. It did something for my confidence. And, usually when it was dialed in like that, I was ready to go. And I would do that before the big games, but usually some of my best games, I was just extremely relaxed, maybe a little bit tired, wasn't too, overly energetic. And I go out there and I would have never guessed I played that well based off of how I felt pregame.
See, an idiot like me would be like, well, I don't want to waste all the good ones. It's funny how you think about superstition and go through it. And I think as a fan, right, like, I consider myself like a pretty knowledgeable fan, and it's just one of those things you don't ever really think about. And it just like me asking these questions is like totally organic. Like, walk me through warm-ups, right? Like, I mean, I don't think most people think about, they just see guys out there goofing around, shooting jump shots and, having a good time. And there's a rhyme or reason to it, especially I would imagine, prior to, right, tip when everybody's already, kind of filing in the stadium and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. And it was, makes me curious as to whether or not, individuals or the program, the coaching staff can do something, to adjust these slow starts. And look, they can't let off the gas now as if they could anyway. I mean, they got to start hitting the gas at some point. But next game up, Alabama, Wednesday at the Smith Center, 7:15 tip. That is the SEC ACC challenge now, not the what was it used to be the Big Ten.
Big Ten.
Alabama's currently sits at number 9. They're 6-2. Knocked us out of there last year, I think it was. They're scoring 88 points a game. So good shooting team. I mean, you look at their stat sheet and it looks an awful lot like Carolina's from a team perspective on a game by game basis. They just lost to Oregon in a close one, and they lost at Purdue earlier this month. So, what are their I guess vulnerabilities? Big win against Houston, beat Illinois, beat Rutgers lately. What do the Tar Heels have to do to get back on track here?
Yeah, Sleep, and you just mentioned it. They're not ducking anybody either. They've played a very tough schedule. They beat a lot of quality teams. I mean, beating Houston, that's a tough game. Houston brings it. Calvin Sampson, his defense is unbelievable. That is a big-time win. Beating Illinois, Purdue. Alabama's, one of the best teams in the country. And they also knocked us out of the tournament last year. And so there's that factor as well. So whoever scheduled this game, I always love it when they do this. It adds a little extra drama. They entered our gear last year. Let's bring them to our place. So I'm excited about this game. This would be a big opportunity for us to get a big-time win. Now, a lot of people think Alabama is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. And for anyone who doesn't know, Nate Oates is one of the most analytical coaches in college basketball, maybe in basketball. He loves to shoot threes. I mean, he is a volume three-point shooting coach. And the one thing we must do, we must bring it defensively. And we cannot allow them to get hot. We cannot allow them to, have easy buckets and get hot from the outside. And another thing why we need to bring it defensively, Sleep, is because if you look at their last, few games, they've really struggled with turning the ball over. And I think one big key factor for us to get this win against Alabama would be to make them or force them into turnovers, pressure their guards, get after them defensively, have our rotations on point. If you look at it, they had 15 turnovers against Houston. They had 20 turnovers against Rutgers. And then their recent loss, 15 turnovers against Oregon. Now, Oregon, what they did that we should do is when Alabama turned that ball over, they capitalized on it. I think they had, 17 points off of Alabama's turnovers, which is key. And also, when you pressure the ball and you're connected defensively, whenever you force the team to turn it over, that is just like starting your offense. And that's the way we want to play, fast pace, forcing the other team to turning the ball over. That's only going to benefit us and the style that we want to play, and it's going to lead to high-quality buckets, uncontested layups, all the things that we want. And, this is going to be a big-time recipe for a dub for us. And the other thing I'm looking at is Mark Sears, who was arguably the second-best player in the SEC last year behind Dalton Connect. He is a big-time guard. He is an All-American. Some people have him as a preseason Player of the Year candidate. Him and RJ. These are two All-American guards, two of the best guards in college basketball. They're meeting in the Smith Center, and it's going to be a duel, and I'm looking forward to that matchup. Mark Sears, also a very good defender. We have to contain him and not let him get hot. And you know what, Sleep? This is going to be kind of, you're going to hear this a lot from me. No sluggish starts. We got to bring it from the tip. We can't get behind 20 points in the Smith Center. We've got to protect our house. We've got to be connected, and we've got to start the game with an energy and a discipline from the tip. We can't come out here and just be lackadaisical and expect to get a dub against a team like Bama. Bama is also one of the deepest teams in college basketball. They have one of the best freshman recruiting classes in the country. They also got a lot of good portal pickups. We were after Cliff Omorie, who I considered, he's not playing like I thought he would, but he is athletic. He's a veteran. He can get up and down. He will run. We can't let him, get it going, but he is a big-time player, and he, is arguably one of the best players in the portal last year. He's at Bama. And also, we can't forget about Grant Nelson, what he did to us in the tournament. That still haunts us. We've got to contain those guys, and we can't let other people be an X factor for Bama. They are deep, and they have multiple guys that can get hot and give us issues. So we've got to bring it from the start. We've got to bring it defensively, and we've got to, we've got to be connected and push the ball and play with pace. And I think this would be, three big keys for us to get this win against Alabama.
Yeah, Bama's, maybe I think top 10 in the country in points and rebounds too. Rebounds is going to be an interesting one in this one. Something we talk about a lot, where those are going to come from. But Sears is interesting too because he's having kind of the same start as RJ, right? Like, excuse me, not shooting the ball as well from the field. So, as much as I don't want to see this happen, it could be a fun coming out party for both those guys to just go at it,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe this could be the thing that launches them, gets them back on track. But that's going to be, it's going to be a good one. A little earlier than, your typical midweek start, 7:15 at Smith Center.
Love it.
You're going to need some people to show up for that one. Big Hawk, you can be on the radio for that one, right?
Yes, sir. Tune in, guys. Tar Heel Sports Network. Give us a listen. You won't want to miss it. Bring your headset if you're going to the game too.
I love dubbing over I always try to like time it up right so I can listen to the radio broadcast of the TV, and ultimately I just wind up figuring out what's going to happen before it happens. And then on to Georgia Tech. All right, so we'll have them on Saturday. Obviously, this is a weekly show. Tar Heel or SleepHawk Worldwide faithful. So we'll go ahead and jump into the Georgia Tech. Their first conference game this year?
Yes, it would be the conference opener. Yep.
So, what do we got to look forward to there?
Well, Georgia Tech's a little bit unknown to me. And the reason why I say that is because they haven't played the toughest schedule, which a lot of teams at this point in the year don't. We obviously have played one of the hardest schedules in college basketball. We don't duck anybody. But they're also a young team. And if anybody remembers Damon Stoudemire, played at Arizona, NBA player. He's a head coach there. This is his second year. They were a young team, but inconsistent last year. They beat us. They beat Duke. They beat Clemson. And then they lose to a team like Louisville, who was last year. Louisville was arguably the worst team in ACC history. So peaks and valleys for them. They do have three returning starters that all pretty much, if they didn't finish in double figures last year, they're close to it. The three guys, Nathan George, Bay Nadingo, and Quais Reeves. Those are the three key guys for Georgia Tech. I just absolutely butchered that, and I got to get their names right for the radio on Saturday. But when I look at this game, this is kind of, let's focus on us. Now, Alabama is one of those teams where they have players where you've got to know what they do. You just can't roll out there and expect it. But you've got to understand their offense. You've got to guard certain people, take away certain things, and then play well to get the win against them. I think against a team like Georgia Tech, you've got to do what you do best, and you've got to focus on yourself. You can't get too caught up into looking at personnel, taking away certain stats. You've got to make sure that you bring your game. And we can't get off to a sluggish start, just like I've always said. We've got to bring it defensively, and we've got to play with pace and share the ball and take high-quality shots, and I think we win. And the other thing I will say is when we bring it defensively, I'm also tying that in with rebounding. That's going to continue to be a concern for us because we don't have that one marquee low post guy that cleans up the boards. We're going to have to rebound as a unit and as a team. And sometimes that's a good thing when you have guys that are boxing out, doing their defensive principles, and closing out defensive possessions with a rebound or a turnover is going to be key for us. And we can't let that, we've got to stay focused on that because if we do that, that's how we're going to win. And we're not going to have that guy like Armando or Harrison Ingram last year that's just going to come in and have these big rebounding games. We're going to have to rebound as a team and a committee.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through Georgia Tech's schedule. They got absolutely mollywopped by our boy Wes in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's playing great right now. So be excited to kind of see how that goes. So, yeah, I mean, look, Georgia Tech, it is what it is. It's one of those games. It's kind of like, it's not as – I wouldn't put it on par with the Hawaii game. Georgia Tech's obviously a better program than that. They're 4-3 to start the season. So are heels, right? Like, you got to play them all. But we've played a decidedly different schedule, and but conference play comes around, man. You can't overlook anything. And did the early? I feel like I ask this every time there's a game that's not at midnight. Did the early tips ever bother you guys or anybody that Because this is a 2:00 tip on Saturday. You're starting, and we talked about this last season. I remember you're starting to get into that. I don't know, dude. I'm too old to know when winter break is or whatever. And look, these kids play at Carolina, right? You got to be better than that, or above it, right? But 2 p.m. kind of, obviously we will have Alabama behind us at that point, and we'll know, whether we've lost 3 in a row or got back on track, right? But sometimes it's just, man, I always wonder whether those early games bother people.
Sleep, it is a mentally challenging aspect, and it's a great question. I will say I hated the 12 p.m. starts. We had to get up early, and, thinking about it now, me and you were texting at like 7 a.m. this morning. Wide awake.
You're in college, brother. Like, you're like 12 p.m., brother. I want to be asleep.
Yeah. So, the pregame warm up and all that stuff, getting ready for the game, that would happen really early, 7-ish or something like that. And, I felt like I could have used a little bit more rest. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, well, the other team's doing it. So I can't be this mentally weak. If they're doing it, I've got to be better at it than them. And I've got to bring it today. There can't be any excuses. I don't care when we start or how early I have to get up. The other team's doing the same thing. So I can't let that get to me or throw off my mentals, because the other team is going through the exact same thing. And also for playing in the Smith Center, they're not staying where they're not sleeping in their own beds. They're in a hotel, much more difficult aspect. So the early starts, yes, it is tough, but it's tough for everybody, and you got to be mentally stronger than that. You can't let it get the best of you or use it as an excuse. You've got to bring it. I don't care what time, where we play, or what time. You've got to bring it, and you can't let that be an excuse.
Can either be a recipe for another slow start or a recipe for a fast one, since they're sleeping in a got to put them. Did they pick their own hotel when they come into town? Like when the opposing team comes into town, they pick their own hotel, or does the program have an established visiting hotel sort of partner?
I would never pick the hotel. Coach Williams was probably making that decision, or I'm not sure.
No, I meant like, does Carolina have like a hotel where all the visiting teams stay? Or does the visiting team have somebody that's calling around, like my wife, whenever we try to go on vacation? Like, hey, you guys got 30 rooms? Because if I you put them at the Ramada, they just like, let's put them down there. The least, but then I guess what goes around comes around.
No, the team picks it, and the reason I know that is because I tried to get the points for it when I was in the NBA, and I know that I was like, "Hey, can I get the Marriott points?" I know you guys might, and they wouldn't do it, but it was a good try. And
that's the most big hawk thing ever.
Hey man, can you imagine how many Marriott
it'd be a lot of points.
Hotel points? That's a lot of
flight miles. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My buddy Dustin would figure out how to make that work. What you should have done, what he would have done, was called back Marriott afterward and say, "Hey man, I stayed at Marriott for the last 3 days in 3 different cities, and I didn't see the points on my account." And somebody to answer the phone would just be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I see you stayed there, and they'd probably just give you the points. Should have just called them. You probably could have called them. Oh man, let's touch on the change of foot at the football program briefly, and as well as this flag situation. So Mack Brown, I think it was announced Monday, Tuesday last week, has been fired by the university. Okay. I don't know anything about what's going on here. Okay. Like less than zero. So this is largely opinionated as opposed to steeped in any fact. But I'll tell you a couple things. I like Mack Brown. I like Bubba Cunningham, who's the athletics director. And I think it was the writing on the wall, and Mack said so as much in his presser after the NC State loss, that it was time. They said they started looking for coaches after the James Madison loss. You could just feel it coming. It strikes me as very, very weird that they fired him. And he said that he had asked in his presser, I'm paraphrasing because I watched it once and I didn't watch it all the way through, that he asked to stay on through the rest of the season, and they decided to fire him instead of like basically waiting another week. Because the bowl game is not what they're talking about. Mack basically said, hey, I want to wait till after the state game. And you know, it just rings really, really weird to me for several reasons. The only way I can justify it in my mind is if they felt like they had to get a leg up. Because, man, once coaches start dropping, then, dude, it is a free-for-all to get a new coach, right? And, I mean, like, unless they were like, hey, dude, these whatever 5-7 days, we can't afford to lose because we can't risk somebody else getting fired and hiring somebody that quickly. But they roll out the list. And I'm like, I mean, short of Arthur Smith, I didn't really see anybody on that list. And we talked about this in our group chat. I didn't see anybody else that really made me think he's going to come along and do better than Mack Brown did. And I think at the end of the day, dude, Mack Brown's the best football coach Carolina's ever had. And twice. They're in the all-time pantheon of football coaches at Carolina. Mack Brown is number 1, and Mack Brown is number 2 in his 2 stints here. So, I don't know. My first thought is just asking you what your thoughts are on it and how he was treated, and then, you know, maybe we unpack some of his presser a little bit, because I thought he just handled the whole situation well, and I thought he handled it well from the standpoint of like saying he was pissed about it. You know, I thought it was a really you know, what do they call it? A vulnerable press conference where he was just honest, and I mean that's what people in the media, you know, always beg for, and I thought he was honest against himself and against maybe the decision that was made too.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job handling the presser. And, you know, I love Mack Brown. I love Bubba. I hated it to see how this kind of went. And listen, we don't know what the behind the scenes are, or if, you know, somebody else is kind of, you know, forcing somebody, or if, you know, financially there was more of a benefit to fire him during the season versus let him go after that. I'm not sure about that. But I will say is I thought Mack did a good job of representing the university, and he is a great Tar Heel. And I've talked to Mack. I've met him a few times, and every time I've met him and talked to him, I walk away being like, man, I like Mack Brown. And I hated for him to kind of go out like this and lose his last game as the head coach against one of our biggest rivals. It's a tough way to go out and to get fired. I mean, it's been a challenging year, you know, especially with us, you know, losing the player, Tylee Craft to cancer. And, you know, I think it's been a tough year for Mack, and he was getting a little bit older. And it's probably the right move for both parties. But, you know, I'm with you, Sleep. There wasn't a lot of big names or big splash hires on that list. I like Arthur Smith. He's young, NFL experience. He's somebody I get a little excited for. And also other people are excited when you drop Arthur Smith's name. And so I think that's like a no-brainer. I think if he wants a job, you've got to seriously consider him and, you know, pretty much hand him the job if he wants it, because I think kids will really like his NFL experience, and he'll figure out recruiting. Right now in college, sports in general, recruiting is not the same, and it's not the recruiting that, you know, everyone kind of remembers. It's a little bit different. It's a little more money-driven, kind of like free agency. So I'm not sure. I want nothing but the best for Mack. I thought he's done a good job of representing UNC, and he's a heck of a coach. And you know, I just hope that this, you know, last season didn't ruin, you know, him coming back and still being involved and being around the program, because I think having him around and a guy like that to bounce ideas off of or kind of talk to or, you know, represent the school, I think that's a good thing. So I really hope it didn't ruin that.
Yeah, and I don't think it will. I think he's above that. I think there's something at play that the average people just probably don't know about, and it was a difference of opinion. Because, like I said, I think Bubba Cunningham's done a great job as athletics director.
Absolutely,
I've met him a couple times. He's he wouldn't know me from apple butter, but he's always been very nice to me, and that means something. When you just carry your engagement with random people, it means something at a place like this. And, I would venture to guess that, look, it was just a hard decision that was going to piss somebody off one way or the other. I think Mack Brown, it's easy for fans to get mired in the losses, and we haven't had, Matt came and everybody was so excited and we thought we were going to win national championship or something. We had 2 great quarterbacks under his watch. Totally changed everything about Carolina football. I'll never forget the first game where Mack Brown was back. Dude, it was electric, man. Like that Miami game, the first game he came back, dude, might have been the most fun Carolina football game I've ever been to, and there's been some good ones. So, look, he's done a lot for the program. The landscape is changing. There's a reason all these legacy coaches are leaving for the NFL or retiring or going to broadcasting and stuff. There's a reason teams like Georgia are, like losing, almost losing to Georgia Tech, stuff like that. Like the whole landscape is different. And I don't know, in a weird way, man, it just sort of levels everything aside from the fact that, like, look, Carolina's got a lot of money, but there's a lot of schools out there with a lot more football money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, look, it's just as a fan, you want to see the team win, but I think when you have someone like Mack Brown, you got to take a step back and say, hey, man, like, this was a disappointing year, but, I think before he showed up, if you said, hey, you're going to have a winning season and be in the running, have something to root for past the first week of the season for the next 6 or 7 years. Are you cool with that? Like, and I think everybody says yes. So hindsight's 2020 now, but yeah, I think you made a great point. I've never met Mack Brown personally, but he seems like the kind of guy that anyone would want to play for. He represents the school. He's always like pleasant in all of his engagements with the media, despite the fact that sometimes you get pinned in these situations where things aren't going your way, and he always keeps his composure. I thought he was very composed in that presser. And again, like, I think he was really, really honest about it. And and he even said, he was like, after the JMU game, they started looking for coaches, and me and my wife, we thought that was the right move, right? So that he was back in the background supporting it the whole time. And I guess that's the question I just have is, like, why not let Mack Brown retire since he was clearly going to do it? Because I think, the NIL is what's just as call it an equalizer. I don't even know if it's the right way to put it, but man, it's created a lot of, like, and again, like, you want the kids to get paid, but it's created a lot of turmoil, free agency. And he brought up a lot of good points too about, hey, if your coach goes during the season, now all of a sudden you got all these people calling them and doing all this and that and adding to all the pressure. And he talked about how their I don't remember if it was his graduation rate or, the scholastic side of the team is one of the best in the country. I didn't realize that. So, I mean, maybe he's just making it up. I don't know. But
when Cam was there.
Yeah, you got that right. So anyway, man, it's just a real bummer, I think, to see it in the way it did for Mack. But, I mean, that's the way it's going to end. What do you think? We're going to go win a national championship and write a book about him? And right, I mean, that's just not going to be Carolina football, and that's not a knock on Carolina football. It's just not going to happen. So, and it does. It's a bummer to see him go down to State the way they did. I mean, come back, almost win, and then turn around and Tar Heel it away, man. But anyway, everybody loves Mack Brown. I think I don't know anybody that's like upset that that I just get go on and on about how I don't know that you're necessarily going to get anybody better is like what I don't get about the whole situation. Maybe you will. Yeah. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe somebody else is younger with fresh blood, understands NIL. Okay, fine. But you throw a dart and try to get somebody better than Mack Brown to coach your football team, and I will stand corrected. But that brings me to the state loss and this whole flag planting stuff. And apparently, they did it a couple years ago. I was there. And then, like, now it's this big thing. Like, they almost got in a fight. Who else almost got in a fight over it? Somebody last night. Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah, it seemed like every rivalry there was almost a brawl over this flag situation.
I mean, what do you make of this? Like, who are you for? All right, take state out of it. I mean, on one hand, they just won. You want to keep them from planting the flag, keep them from scoring a touchdown over the middle at the end of the game, right? But on the other hand, it's like, act like you've been there before kind of thing.
Well, they've been there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think there's a side of winning with class, and also, State hasn't had the best year, and I'm not saying we have. There's whether you've had a good year or bad year, you shouldn't be planting your flag on another, your rivals, field.
50-yard line, yeah.
Yeah, 50-yard line. It is a sign of disrespect, and I'm not about that. And we can't have these kids, getting into brawls on TV or, throwing blows. There's a lot of emotions in these rivalries. Kids have put a lot of work into it. You can't have them, getting injured, somebody get knocked out. At minimum, I mean, that is just something like, who knows what could happen if one of these, big linemen, all these are D1 football players. This isn't just an ordinary brawl. These guys have the potential to do some harm and, a lot of damage to somebody else if they get a clean blow in. And you can't have these kids brawling on TV like that. Somebody's going to get hurt. And the NCAA, if it was me, if I was running the show, I would have came out today and said, hey, listen, you don't bring your flag. You don't bring your flag with you anymore. We're putting an end to this.
What do they do with the flag staff?
Well, they don't
where
bring
they got it.
They don't bring it, or they use it before the game and then they pack it up. That flag cannot enter that field once the game has started and all this pregame stuff is over. You can't have that, Sleep. This is like something's going to happen. Dude. I'll ban the flag. And also the other question, Sleep, is if you're a football player and you're about to get in a fight, why would you take your helmet off?
Yeah, that's
Leave
pretty
the helmet
stupid.
on.
And the reason I'm laughing is not. I mean, I totally agree with your take. It's like so stupid. Like why? But dude, we're getting old. It's like because we're sitting here talking about, no, kids don't need to be roughhousing in the 50-yard line and planting your flag. I agree with that, but I kind of can't help but laugh at myself because I'm like, I mean, these kids are just going to do what they're going to do. It's like when we were tearing down the goalpost and everybody was up in arms about it. It's like, yeah, somebody's going to look up things. Somebody's going to get killed by one of those things. There's a reason everybody wears their seatbelt and we don't smoke in restaurants anymore, it's evolution here. But no, I agree. It's just, look, and it'll come across as salty, and maybe it is because, I mean, State just has so little to live for that this is their thing, and I think that's why it draws so much ire. And you see the same thing, I think, that happened at Michigan-Ohio State game, right? Like, I don't think Michigan's had a very good year, and they get a big win over Ohio State that still has something to play for. But at the end, you're just like, it's so petulant, like, but is it this new form of like trash talk? You know what I mean? I think there is a certain level of respect that you got to have for anybody, but I don't think most teams sort of quote unquote have respect for their rival, so.
And Sleep, I want to just add one thing. That's on the head coach as well. A good head coach doesn't allow his team to do that. And, neither team, had a season to brag about. But if you're a head coach, you can't allow your players to act like that. And also, if you were about to go to a bowl or had a big, up-and-coming game.
Suspend the player.
Yeah, well, suspend them, but also you don't want one of your main players getting hurt in a brawl because they decided to take the flag and, go to the 50-yard line and plant it. And all that stuff, that's just a look at me type of thing.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's just I would have done the same thing if they planted a field and I was a football. I would have gone down there, took their flag, and thrown it off. I don't care who it is. I understand it, but somebody in whether higher up or the head coaches, they need to step in and say this isn't allowable.
Yeah, and I think that's the last piece I'll say on it is that's the part that really sets it off, right? Is you're going to come, run through all our guys or whatever, and this isn't a Carolina NC State thing. This is like the whole motif of it all right now, right? You're going to come stick the flag in the middle of the field, in the middle of our guys, and then when I take it from you, because I'm standing on business, you want to fight about it. Right? Like, that's the problem is like, look, if you're going to come try, okay, like, you want to bring it up here, go ahead. But like, if you get knocked out, if I snatch it from you, right, don't cry about it. Is kind of where I go with it. And again, I'm literally not going at State in particular on this but they did it last time and it was an issue. Mack Brown spoke to it. And I do think it was a classless thing by State. I think it was classless. What is it? Michigan did it. And hell, probably everybody's going to start doing it now. Maybe we are getting old, but so is planting the flag at the 50-yard line of somebody else's. Whatever. I don't know, man. Anyway, look, Alabama, man, we got to get back on track here. If you're really, you're really feeling down, just order a box of crab cakes, dude. Start eating those things, man. That'll cheer you back up. Get them now and get them by Christmas time. They ship them right to your door. I can't tell you. Well, my dad listens to every episode now, so I usually get him some for Christmas. He loves it. He still got the T-shirt.
Oh, my dad loves
Jimmy's
it too.
turned 50. Jimmy's turned 50, by the way. They got a documentary about themselves on YouTube. You should check it out. Jimmy's Famous Seafood YouTube channel. I mean, electric documentary. You got anything else, Big Hawk?
Stay safe.
Stay safe.